Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of SFF 180 Horror. Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you for joining me. On today's episode, I'll be looking at 3 new and recent novellas from indie publishers that have made a very strong impression on me. Stories from a diverse array of backgrounds, all exploring how the memories of those we've lost impact us as we try to forge a better future. Houston author Sim Kern delivers a stunningly crafted and deeply felt debut with Depart, Depart, which tackles some compelling themes and ideas in barely 100 pages. In a near-future America ravaged by natural disasters wrought by climate change, Noah, a young Jewish trans man from Houston, flees a hurricane and flash flood that has wiped out the city, taking refuge in the Dallas Mavericks arena, which has been repurposed into a relief shelter. There he befriends some refugees from Austin's queer community, such as Malone, who is non-binary, and a trans woman named Elena. As tensions rise both within and without the stadium, Noah has another problem to deal with. He is haunted by a Dybbuk, the ghost of his grandfather Abe, a Holocaust survivor. Abe's warnings are the reason Noah survived the hurricane in the first place. But as situations worsen for Noah and his new friends, Abe is now causing Noah to struggle with whether to stick by them or abandon them, as Abe once abandoned his own family to save himself. With unflinching honesty that allows every scene and every character to ring true, Kern depicts the fear LGBT people live under daily in a bigoted society, ramped up by the need for said bigots to find scapegoats for any calamity they experience. Loyalty and community are shown to be essential to survival in times of strife. And despite the probably unavoidable inclusion of angry, armed white dudes in a story set in Texas, Kern mostly avoids easy stereotypes, as Noah and his friends encounter presumed enemies who are good to them and hopeful allies who aren't. Depart, Depart reminds us that even in the darkest times, the course of history eventually tilts towards hope and justice if you're willing to stay in the fight. LINGHUN is a word in Chinese that means soul. But in this appropriately haunting story by Ai Jiang, it's not the dead who linger, but the living, whose inability to come to terms with grief has turned them into soulless husks of their former selves, trapped by choice in a kind of purgatory for the living. The story is told from 3 viewpoints as it unfolds in a town or perhaps just a suburb somewhere near Toronto called Home, which is an acronym for Homecoming of Missing Entities. If you're familiar with the 5 stages of grief, as laid out by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, then you'll quickly understand that the bereaved people who have come to Home are trapped in stage 1. Home is a neighborhood filled with haunted houses, or, perhaps more accurately, houses that invite hauntings. A family who moves into one, and moving in is difficult because it involves auctions that descend into Hunger Games levels of violent brawling. But anyway, if you move into one of these homes, you can summon the ghost of a departed loved one by placing mementos of their lives all around the house. Tellingly, some of these departed souls don't always seem happy to be brought back. And not every member of every surviving family feels an equal obsession with not letting go. Early in the story, we are told about the lingerers, and at first I thought these might be ghosts as well, but they're actually grieving people and families who have come to Home without either the money to afford one of its homes, or who simply turned up when no empty homes were available and are unable to go back to where they came from. Lingerers simply camp out on the lawns of the homes they hope to buy, due to a neighborhood rule of unexplained origin that you must be physically present at a property when it is vacated to be allowed to take part in the auction. These are fascinating world-building choices by Ai Jiang because they are so surreal, giving the story the character of gothic horror combined with a kind of dystopian nightmare futurism. Wen Qi is the teen daughter of a Chinese immigrant family that has just moved into Home. Her brother died when he was 6 and she was only 3. Her mother is totally consumed by her need to bring the boy back, while her father, mainly goes along to get along, sticking with his work and offering very little support to Wenqi, who feels not only ignored but actively rejected. Liam is the son of a family that has come to home to reunite with the ghost of his little sister. Unlike Wenqi's family, they're lingerers, but like Wenqi, Liam does not share his family's obsession with his departed sibling and feels trapped by the senseless absurdity of it all. Liam and Wenqi meet at school. Yes, there is a school in this strange community, though it doesn't seem too committed to teaching its students anything meaningful. Perhaps this is because families here only stick around until they succeed or fail at getting what they want. The final period of each school day is a 90-minute chat session where everyone just sits around and talks about their attempts to contact dead relatives. Liam initially has an ulterior motive in befriending Wenqi, but soon they make plans to get away together. Finally, there is the enigmatic character known only as Mrs., who lives across the street from Wenqi's family and whose house is the only one not haunted and the only one without a small army of lingerers camped on the lawn. This character's story is the slowest to develop, but the most intriguing in terms of development, revealing without giving away too much an individual whose circumstances never really allowed her to live. LINGHUN is thankfully not a book with facile, carpe diem messages to sell, but it does explore, with beautiful writing and a deep sense of empathy, the way that grief is simply an inescapable fact of life, and that how we choose to confront it has much to teach us about who we are and who we're capable of being in our own time above ground. In Agony's Lodestone, Laura Keating also explores the theme of family grief and reconciliation. Aggie, Alex, and Bailey Nielsen are siblings who have still never fully come to grips with the disappearance years before of their eldest sister Joanne. A teen swimming champion, Joanne's athletic gifts made her the family's golden child in their New Brunswick town, but privately, she was your typical sullen teenager, angry over the expectations placed on her as well as her parents' lack of faith that her swimming skills could lead to an actual career. One day, after a family row, Joanne took the dog for a walk. The dog came home on his own. Joanne never did. The surviving siblings now live with unhealed scars and resentments. Youngest brother Bailey has alienated both sister Aggie and brother Alex by parlaying his role as a grieving brother into a media career, pitching a true crime, unsolved mystery show to a major producer. This hasn't gone as well for him as hoped. The story opens as he reconnects with Aggie and Alex over a surprising discovery. He has a videotape from a security camera at a nature preserve, which appears to show Joanne the day she vanished. Bizarrely, the footage seems to loop many times over, while the timecode stamp clearly shows the minutes and seconds ticking by normally. And Joanne looks a little different each time she appears. Naturally, this is everyone's cue to venture out to the location, which is a forest near the Bay of Fundy, a body of water with some of the most powerful tidal activity in the world. Keating makes positively brilliant use of the geography of the area to evoke a sense of looming dread. There are things in this forest, just not the kinds of things you'd expect. Without revealing too much about what our characters confront in this haunted wilderness, suffice it to say the story called to mind some of the nature-themed horror of filmmaker Ben Wheatley, particularly movies like A Field in England and In the Earth. There's a similar hallucinatory quality to the way Keating's characters come to realize that time, space, and reality itself are malleable things, and that forgiveness and redemption only come from committing to permanent change. Written with passion and heart and very real fear, Agony's Lodestone is a fever dream of a debut that will pull you all the way in. And there you have it. Once again, the small presses have come through for horror fans. Now, remember the most important thing? These are reviews. You are not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button. Share the video far and wide with all of your SFF and horror reading friends. And above all, please subscribe if you have not done so yet. That is how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army occasionally get little perks like early access to some of my videos, but mostly the purpose of the Patreon is to help me pay Matt Olson, my incredibly gifted and talented channel artist who does all of my beautiful thumbnails and other channel art for me. So thank you all very much. Those of you who are lending that additional support, it is greatly appreciated. And I want to thank all the rest of you for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube. And until I see all of you next time, please stay safe, stay healthy, and spooky reading.